What is up, people of the internet? The Cosmic Adults here, Ian Altsar, Mercedes Ann. And this time, in this very special, unique episode, we're not alone and we have Ola with us. Now, Ola is a very unique individual and she uses astrology in her, let's say, practice, in her work. But she has very specific ways of looking at astrology and using astrology, and I would actually prefer not to kind of like butcher it. And I'm going to give the mic off to you, Ola, and just maybe let's start a little bit of your approach and how you see this science you and I both use in our lives.
Oh, thank you so much. Welcome everybody to say hello. This is my first time on Cosmic Adults. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so pleased to be able to connect with even bigger audience on Cosmic Adults. Greetings from Northern Norway here, Arctic Circle. And yes, indeed, my take on astrology. So I don't really consider myself astrologer per se. I use astrology. I believe that everybody should have an understanding of astrology because what I have. So just to give you a bit of my background, my sort of way into astrology has been via ancient texts. So I've been studying the Vedic texts, the Babylonian, Mesopotamian mythology, the Bible, the Norse mythology. So every single sort of geography, which is offering some kind of view of cosmology, I think that this is worth looking at. And when you do that, what you find out is that I think we're gonna have a special guest here. We have my cat coming in. When you do that, you get a picture, you get a full picture of how the ancients look at the sky and what did they see. And this often forms the basis of, for example, the flat Earth notion, right? So I don't want to really go there. However, what I want to say is that perhaps there is a different way to interpret what the ancients intended. And perhaps the interpretation goes more towards the certain construct that we have above us involving the zodiac, involving the planets, which has been put in place by someone that's some kind of civilization that perhaps was here invading or was here before us, not necessarily with the most benevolent intentions. And as a result of that, here we live in a world full of limitations, full of negativity and tough experiences. And then astrology, as what I have discovered via those texts and just studying astrology, seems to be the code into this construct known by everybody as the matrix. So here I am trying to decode the reality using astrology, numerology, gematria, sacred geometry, astrotheology. These are all levels sort of coded into what we should be really looking at to get a proper go at it.
Guys, I just want to say, this is a bit of a promotion for me and Ola as well, because we have done a couple of interviews where Ola really dives deep into some of the things she mentioned here as well on my personal channel, the Freedom Astrology channel. So go check those out. Well, one of those is very popular. I think it's a really extremely good video. Ola really put a lot of effort into it. It's called The Freedom from the Zodiac. I recommend you go check that out as well if you want to go even deeper with this. Yeah, I'm always amazed when Ola starts speaking and it goes very deep. And this time we have a bit of a, let's say, a rough agenda for this podcast as well, and it's a lot about the rise of women, the rise of the feminine. We can see this a lot of in a lot of online places, in a lot of spiritual groups. There's a lot of talk courses, all this wisdom and almost like this very energetic, very strong energetic impulse pushed, I would say pushed, maybe put, I don't know, you can now explain it to me in an, or from a feminine perspective as well. What is actually happening right now, let's say from a bigger perspective? Why is this happening? What is actually happening with this rise of the feminine stuff?
That's a very good question, because I think that probably most of the people would have noticed, especially perhaps the women would have noticed that there is this notion of women waking up quite often faster than men are. That's been going on for years. This is not a new thing. Women being sort of drawn to spirituality, women wanting to discover the old ways, women wanting to connect to something more, feeling very much guided to some deeper wisdom, quite often seeking, being very open to new things, very much seeing how this world is constructed in a very negative way. They see the control, they see the manipulation, they see the propaganda, but there is something that's kind of I would say burning inside, and wanting to really come out, and this is very interesting. Why now? Why is it happening, right? And when you look in the kind of context of the prophecies, the ancient prophecies, the prophecies of the indigenous peoples, so whether that be the Native Americans, the Incas, even here in the north, it's the same notion, including the literally the cosmic aspect of this, which I'm going to talk about, but pretty much it's coming from every geography around the earth, that whether that be through the prophecies or some kind of mythology stories, that this time now is extremely important, and it is the rise of the women. It's going to require rise of women. That is very clear in the Cathar's prophecy. So we're going back 800 years. The Bogomils, the Incas, the Mayas, talking about women. This has been the time of women. So clearly, the energy that women are picking up on is absolutely correct. It's definitely something is on, and women are very much tuning into that. So if we look at it from a cosmic perspective, and this is what I'm not sure why not many people talk about, because what we have happening now, and this is not sort of this year affair. We're talking years, so it would have started several years back, and it's gonna continue for some time. But we are in a period of time where we have three major cosmic cycle aligning, which is a major cosmic event, because as you probably know, being an astrologer yourself, two things aligning, okay, that's interesting, but three things aligning right at the same time, well, that doesn't happen often. So the three cycles I'm talking about is the end of Kali Yuga, so the pretty much the most miserable era of all there is. And of course, we have the Vedic text pointing at probably the early 2000s. But if we sort of look at it from the context of the Mayas, and the Mayan end of the world 2012, right? And nobody really being able to decipher what is this about. Well, that's most likely the same cycle that the Vedas are talking about. So end of Kali Yuga, end of the old year, end of the world as we used to know it. That's the first cycle. So that's already sort of behind us, and we are entering a new energy, a new era. So kind of going upwards. That's good news. Second of the cycles being, well, the age of Aquarius. And of course, if you want to be very technical about it, we are not in the age of Aquarius yet, but we are standing at the gateway, as I like to call it. So we are still few degrees away. However, I would say that given the context of the current events and the kind of the way the agenda is progressing, we are pretty much feeling the wind of Aquarius in the lowest manifestation of it. So there is definitely the energy of Aquarius already upon us. And mind you, how is this even measured, right? That we are in Pisces or Aquarius? Well, this is to do with the precession of equinoxes, so with the kind of perceived movement of the whole zodiac from our perspective across the sky. So we're measuring that at the vernal equinox, which constellation happens to be behind the sun at vernal equinox. So we are almost at the Aquarius. So we're entering, we're kind of looking already at Aquarius. And here is a very, very important to go into a big myth around Aquarius, which is that Aquarius is portrayed as a man. While Aquarius, and if anybody saw the constellation of Aquarius on any app or maybe online somewhere, the official constellation is pictured as a man holding a sort of pitcher, a jar, and pouring water. So Aquarius pouring water. But this is a patriarchal lie. It's a patriarchal misconception, okay? But Aquarius is not a man. Pretty much every single thing throughout history that used to belong to women has been twisted and turned in favor of patriarchy. So a very, very important symbology has been hidden here. Aquarius is actually a woman. And it's a woman holding the jar. We can link her to Mary Magdalena holding the alabaster jar, anointing, because that's what Mary Magdalena would have done back in the day. The women who were really, really standing in their power. And you probably would know the stories of the kings being anointed when they took over the crown. They were anointed by women. So this is really a beautiful symbology of a woman who is holding the alabaster jar or the pitcher, pouring water of life. And the water of life being the original codes of creation. And the last cycle, the last one, we're talking about the sun alignment perfectly at the winter solstice to the center of Milky Way galaxy. And what we have in Milky Way galaxy is a black hole. And of course, even NASA will tell us that, all matter comes from the black holes. So again, this is a nicely packaged, but of course, if we know how to look through that meaning, this is again to do with that kind of source of all creation. So those three things aligning are precisely to do with the feminine, because when these codes are coming, it is women that are meant to receive them. This is why this is such a big time of awakening and for women, and women stepping into their power. The alignment of those three cycles is literally, it's beyond anything that we can imagine. It is so important. It is so critical right now. But even what's more critical is for women to be ready to receive this.
Wow. I was like freaking out inside while you were saying that. And all I could think is like, well, the cat's out of the bag, boys. So I feel like I'm like, I don't even know where to start with my questions. So women taking back their power, what would be your message for women, first of all? Like, how do we practically do that? Where do you start if all you've done all your life is just give away everything, all your creative energy? And what would be your message for men, like especially young men as well right now, growing up into this, or older men as well?
That's a very good question, because I think that we can talk about all these advanced spiritual esoteric concepts, but if we don't actually know what to do with it, then it's absolutely useless. So I would say, as simple as for women, how about what not to do? How about no longer be subdued to any level of domination. And I'm not talking about going into fighting mode or going into competition or anything like that. These are actually masculine behaviors. But how about remembering about your own feminine side? How about not letting go of control? Also masculine behavior. How about letting go of judgment? How about letting go of having that kind of need to pursue the matrix types of behaviors? How about remembering your own value? So we're talking here about certain kind of behaviors that women needs to start practicing, that we, I think, often forget. Just as simple as stop being subservient in any way, to whether that be at work, whether that be at home. Stop overdoing, stop overextending yourself, stop thinking that you have to prove your worth, stop trying to be so useful. Why can't you just be? Why aren't you good enough the way you are? Am I triggering people?
Probably. But like, I very often have this conversation with my fiance. Is like, whatever you say, you're going to trigger somebody. So, you know, why not say what you want to say and what you mean, actually. So, I'm glad you're coming out with guns blazing here. I'm just maybe even a little bit more specifically, if we're talking about women and maybe their own worth, do you also, when you're working with, let's say, one-on-one with women now, especially, people are opening, and women especially are opening, and they're coming to you as well for guidance and for support and understanding these things, do you look at their Venus in their chart and as well, or how do you start even let's say explaining these things to a woman who comes to you and says like, hey, I know something is not working, but can you help me?
Sure. So what I do is I actually go a step further. So there are certain teachings in the feminine line, in the feminine tradition. I happen to have been brought up with access to some of that. And of course there's a massive amount of wisdom that's been tucked away pretty much everywhere. So that's accessible if you actually look and try to combine it. So when women come to me, there's a bit of a I would say it's a twofold approach. Of course, we can go into these teachings, into those very esoteric teachings, which are to do with activating certain things. And mind you, we're not talking initiations or any rituals or any howling to the moon. We're talking about certain, I would say, mystery schools information, which is coded into the ancient text. So if you actually start opening that, there's a great amount of wisdom about that true feminine power. The witches of the old days, they were really powerful, and you know, they were doing a little bit more, and they were capable of a little bit more than just what we seem to be doing right now, which is pretty much nothing. However, before you start touching that side, you know, let's be honest with ourselves. If you are going to go to some spiritual development workshops or meditations or yoga, any of these practices, but your house is a mess, meaning you are not living these values, you are not being true to yourself, you're not following what your heart desires, you're sacrificing your well-being for someone else, maybe for a man, maybe for other members of the family, for other people, you're overextending yourself, so what's the point of any of that? What's the point of going and, you know, pretending that you're following some practices when actually it should start with you living in truth with yourself? Are you living in truth with yourself? That's the first question. Are you always doing what you really feel? or are you selling yourself in a sense, right? By doing what others expect from you, or what you think you should, or what you think you need to do because this is what the society expects, etc., etc. So are you really an embodiment of self-love and self-respect? You know, these are not empty words, because I think that often these are thrown around and people don't really know how to connect to that. And the way to connect to that is as simple as, are you always true to yourself? Are you always doing what you really feel is right for you? Simple. So as for Venus, that's a very good question. I see Venus, you see, if you approach Venus from, for example, Babylonian astrology gives us a very nice dive into Venus. Because Venus, what people quite often maybe don't know or forget, is that Venus shows up in three, sort of as a three-phase Venus. So she shows up for us as a morning star, evening star, and invisible Venus. This is to do with the movement of Venus in the sky, whether she's following the sun, or she's invisible at the time, or she's kind of coming back to the sky. And of course, there is a meaning of each of these emanations, and that is directly to do with also three energies that every woman embodies. So the morning star Venus is linked to the energy of the maiden, of the virgin. The evening star Venus is linked to the energy of the woman as the mother, as a creatrix, mother of the universe, not a mother to a child. It's the creatrix, a woman having the ability to birth anything into being. And the black, I call it the black Venus, the invisible Venus, is to do with the energy of a woman as a crone, as the witch. So every woman will have Venus in one of these positions. And as it turns out, that position, that Venus in one of those positions, is linked to literally the kind of either trauma or negative experiences that a woman would have underwent when she was maybe a girl, or maybe growing up, or even certain experiences that keep happening to her throughout her life. Very often the Venus evening star is to do with some kind of victim mentality, whether there would have been an abuse, or there is a woman who doesn't love herself, who's doing too much, who's kind of looking for approval, etc. That tends to be the theme of that Venus. On the other side, on the morning star Venus, the virgin, the maiden energy, we tend to have a problem with going into the masculine. So women who operate from the masculine energy. So there is all that kind of control and judgment, being very defensive, being very scared, and very much in your head, not kind of disconnected from anything below the neck. And then we have the crone, so the invisible Venus, actually most powerful, while in the astrology community, you will hear that invisible Venus is the weakest. She's actually the most powerful. It is the interpretation that's the problem, okay? Because invisible Venus is the witch. And what witches used to do? Well, they used to very often be alone, and they used to be separated from the society, right? So that's the kind of flavor. You tend to be on your own when you're in that kind of power, when you have all that power. So it is again to do very much with the energy that a woman embodies, and which is a little bit blocked before she can fully step into embodying all those three. So this is what I help women to do.
Yeah, I think that's huge, and I think that's very vital to understand. If you're a woman, which of the Venuses you actually have, which is the experiences you have, and how you can navigate now these in your adult life as well. And just an astrological note, guys, for you. Sometimes this is also called a burnt Venus, when Venus is very near to the sun as well. So if you recognize this in your astrological searches. Anyway, huge information coming from you, Ola. And in my mind, I'm sitting here and I know some of these movements that are happening. I just want to maybe hear your perspective on it, because at this same moment right now, this feminine uprising, let's call it, is happening. The other side of the coin, which I see also in the online, in not only online, but kind of like in material, practical reality as well, is these very, very, let's call them alpha or macho, or kind of like very, very boasting. It's not only boasting, but it's very, very like masculine, very, very extreme masculine men are coming into, let's say, the limelight, and they're, the other side of the coin is they're in a way trying to bring the masculine back. But here's where I see the discrepancy. Both are trying to bring it up, but it seems to me that both have very, very specific ways of looking at things. I don't know if you're, let's say, connected to the things that the men are bringing in. What is your take on that side of the things, like almost like the extreme masculinity side of the coin?
I mean, I'll be honest with you, probably piss a lot of people here off, but to me, the kind of masculinity which is seeking the limelight so much, that doesn't seem to be the healthiest one. The alpha behavior is actually not the masculine that we are talking about, the kind of masculine of that caliber to match the feminine that I'm talking about. So I think that there's a lot of confusion right now, even on TikTok. There's a lot of videos that I see. There is the dark feminine theme, there is the alpha masculine theme, all those notions that is again misinterpretation, and it's just I'm sorry, but this is derailing the whole idea. So the women that I'm talking about, they will hardly be ever recognized, probably not in this lifetime. So we're talking about extremely humble women. They are not looking for limelight. The women that are truly in their power are not women that are looking to be famous and recognized. This is something that women do. They step into that space and they do their work without waiting for anybody to be thankful or anybody to recognize that. What the men are doing, I think it's again to do with this agenda that's playing out in order to confuse everybody, in order to make sure that we do not happen to step into where we need to step into. So I personally, the alpha trend, well, that's kind of, again, that's deep patriarchy, because alpha trend comes from that kind of perception of being superior,
which is actually an inferiority complex.
It's a deep patriarchy, right? It stems from patriarchy. So if we are trying to bring the balance, then we shouldn't be operating out of, again, one polarity. And patriarchy is not just as simple as it's a polarity. It is an agenda. It has been going on for millennia, and there is a reason for that. And the reason for that is to literally push the women to the sidelines, because I mean, this is the reason why the witches were burned at stake, right? Because they were dangerous. So there is that patriarchy holds that never-ending fear, and probably more than that towards women. So yeah, there's a lot of it out there, playing out in all sorts of different ways as well, with everybody now being confused about whether they are a boy or a girl. That's part of that agenda as well.
Very interesting. I think what you brought up there about about the witches being burned at the stake is actually a really important point, because didn't we have like an astrological event like 2 years ago or something that was the same as the Salem witch trials? I feel like it was a bit ago, but my thought on that is, like, people forget that they didn't burn witches. They burned people. They burned women, smart, individual, like intelligent freaking women. And so to me, that's like quite a sad moment in history to reflect on. My question that I'm evolving into here is on truth, because it's like when I hear you speak, I hear truth. Like I hear the truth that's coming through. What was it that first ignited your like spark to investigate the truth? And how do you know in a confusing world that is meant to be confusing, how do you distinguish the truth from everything else that's in front?
To be fair, what was the first thing? I don't know if I can even answer that, because I think it seems to have been always ingrained into me that this was the way, always, forever. So I was quite a heretic and non-conformist since since that was the package that the parents got. So that was there from the beginning, which obviously put me in a lot of troubles throughout especially my childhood and sort of early years. So that's I think in some of us that kind of natural spark towards it, it's just always there. And in terms of how do you navigate, how do you know, I think we are programmed our whole life to trust the head. There is this massive glorification of the mind, of the logic analysis, right? We're never told to trust the intuition. I mean, that's not really ever in any way rewarded. Not at work, right? I mean, you have to make a call, you make it with your logic. You do not make at work any calls, whether you work in a corporation, it's not encouraged that you make intuition-based calls. But I think that that's what we have to do. We have to get out of the head. When you get out of the head and you allow yourself that connection, which is, by the way, our original design. We are not head-based. Of course we can have the intelligence to to calculate things, and that's all great, but the connection to something greater is not via the mind and the logic. It is via something lower than that, right? It's through our heart, through our womb. In the ancient tradition, the womb and the heart are actually connected, so it's like a one center. So it's called, for women, it's called the womb heart. For men, it's obviously the heart. So men should operate from the heart. Women operate from both. And mind you, operating from the womb does not mean that we are here to birth children. If we are, however, the womb is a remnant of something so much bigger, because if we have a womb with which we are capable of bringing spirits, bringing souls from another dimension, materialize them and bring them into this world, then the question is, what else are women capable of doing with this portal? Because ultimately it's a portal. Operates together.
On that bombshell, okay, so that's pretty big. Do you have more questions, Mercedes? Because
I am I'm just basking in my like shookness.
I almost feel like
of how big that was. Like, I hope everybody listening like heard that, and if you didn't, rewind and play what she just said again, because that was huge. Okay, go for it, Ian. I have no questions. I'm just gonna bask.
I just feel like this was so big, because I have personally never heard, because I've taken workshops and teachings with women, with men, together, all sorts of things. I have never heard of anybody bringing that kind of wisdom or comparison, or what can you bring, what else can you bring from your womb? That's a big thing. So I almost feel like maybe this is a time for us to kind of leave the audience guessing, and maybe if Ola is willing, and if we bring this back, maybe do the next episode, or the sequel to this, like what can you bring what else can you bring other than children from your wound? Because that is I feel like this is such a big topic. Obviously, I'm a man, so I would be like a bystander, but still, it's a big thing for women and for our planet Earth in general as well. How do you guys feel about that assessment?
I'm always in. Like I'm literally like shaking right now. Like that just like freaking pierced something. So thank you very much.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry, Mercedes.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I am totally up for, if you would like me to come back, I would be very happy to come back and elaborate a little bit on that. I think it's extremely important. It's specifically linked to these 3 cycles that I mentioned. And it is linked to our traditions that well, we can call them pagan, we can call them native, indigenous, we can call them ancient. There's an echo of the same story everywhere. So this used to be a popular knowledge that's been eradicated. So I think it's time that we bring it back and we solve the issue that we have been having here for millennia.
Mm-hmm. I think you're absolutely right, because I think women everywhere see it, even if they can't conceptualize it, they see it. So how can people work with you? Because I have a feeling there are going to be some people. And my other question is, do you work exclusively with women, or do you work with men as well?
So in terms of the I do sort of 2 different services. I do astrology readings, and I do them for a little bit different reason. I do them in a sense of know the code that you have received coming into this matrix, so that you can, it's like the ocean. I'll teach you to surf. That's the astrology part of it, okay? And then I also do the feminine alchemy. I call it feminine alchemy because it is literally an alchemy that we need to bring back. And that work I do only with women. I, however, recently been having some interest from men, and they just want to learn a little bit more about that topic, which is absolutely fine. There is obviously, complementary teaching that is for men, or complementary part that is for men. Here, I've just not been so far focusing on that. However, mind you, men are extremely important in this process. It's just that we have to understand we have slightly different roles. So that's all it is.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, I just wanted to say Ola's website is selfmasteryquest.com. We will link it in the description box. We will link it in the information, so you can reach out to her in that link from that website. She also has a Facebook, and you also, I think you now write a column in a Polish online website or something. Yeah, you do a lot of things. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been invited to run a astrology section on one of the Polish sort of portals that's pretty much talking about the current affairs, etc. So but I think that the easiest to find me is either through my website or through Facebook, Self Mastery Quest.
Cool. Amazing. And I can attest, I have had an astrology reading with Ola, and it was life-changing and life-saving.
Oh, thank you so much.
So thank you so much. I haven't really been able to connect too much with you about it, but it was very helpful, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate.
Yeah, definitely, guys. If you're interested in going deeper with yourself, with all the Venus stuff, with your feminine stuff, please reach out to Ola. She's really amazing, tremendous. Only good things to say about her. And yeah, thank you so much, Ola, for joining the Cosmic Adults. Yeah, do you have anything kind of like to end this or to add or?
I just want to say from my side, thank you so much for having me, and thank you everybody for your time watching this. And just please listen to yourself, not only use critical thinking, but use what's below the neck. This is our original design, and that should serve you so much better.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that's a really good note to end this podcast. Thanks, guys, for listening. See you again soon in the next episode.